let's talk podcast strategy, but more specifically, D&D actual play podcast strategy. The strategy that we implemented to launch our D&D actual play podcast, the 20 Sides Podcast. Smash that subscribe button. Welcome to 20 Sides Weekly. All right, what's up, Matt? We are talking today about podcast strategy, specifically
I've got my
D&D actual play.
And my notebook ready.
If you don't have your pencil and notebook ready at home, it's time, because 20 Sides Podcast, what we do, we feel like we're going to explain it pretty well. So first things first, before we even got started with any of the podcast, actually recording and doing some of those things, we did some research. So what kind of research, Matt, did we do in the beginning?
Yeah, we crowdsourced our research. And by that, I mean, we did Twitter polls, we did Reddit polls, we asked anybody and everybody that would listen to us, and we polled from how long do you want your podcast to be to, what do you want your podcast to consist of? Is it mainly combat? Is it mainly RP? Do you want characters to speak in character the whole time? Or do you want it to be like the strategy of the players talking at the table? And we got a ton of market research from that. And we took what we thought would be best for our table. So we just didn't take exactly what people said and said, okay, that's exactly what we're going to do. We looked at what they said, and then we said, how does this fit best with what we do at our table? Because, we were a very traditional D&D experience without the microphones rolling, in that there would be, 20, 30 minutes of no one speaking in character because we're trying to figure out how to attack the orcs at the orc fort or whatever it may be. And so it adjusted a little bit of how we play, but we wanted to hear, there's no reason to release a podcast that no one wants to listen to. If it's 6 hours long,
exactly. Yes.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody has time for that. We have kids, you got families, you got other shows you want to listen to, and trying to fit in another show probably wouldn't work best. So we had to figure out, all right, how do we fit best into this? And so we took all of that information and kind of put it into what you hear at 20 Sides, which leads me to this question of, give me a broad overview of kind of what was our initial strategy before launch, maybe during launch. That could be like social media. It could be recording. It could be like pre-planning on our part. Give me all that like broad strategy that you think of from your end.
Right. Broad strokes. Right. So again, taking all that stuff, because it's always important. You know this. You have this mindset of, this is what I want to create. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that's cool that you want to create that, but what does everybody actually want to consume? Yeah. And so that part of it, what you're talking about when we do that crowdsourcing and that kind of stuff, you kind of realize sometimes like, oh, maybe my idea was close, so I'm going to tweak it a little bit. And I think that's what we did. We, my wife and I do have a background with podcasting, so we had maybe a little more of the like, industry says stay over here like this. Now let's implement some of that with the D&D side of things. So broad strokes, we knew we wanted to make sure it was a really close kind of 50-50 split on role play and combat. And I think sometimes it was like more people wanted almost a 60-40 more role play than combat. Yeah. We wanted to make sure we stayed in character. We wanted to stay between 30 to 45 minutes, which for D&D podcasts is not a thing. Like you very rarely ever see that. It is typically because what do you do at the table? You sit down for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours with your people in play. And that's what you typically get. We also wanted to focus on quality audio. We wanted to make sure that it didn't sound like there was just a microphone in the middle of the table and you could barely hear some people and you couldn't hear other people, but some people were way too loud. And then some people so we wanted to make sure that the audio was quality. And then we wanted to get ahead of ourselves. So we made sure that our role play and combat fit what the community said. We wanted to keep it short so people could like stay in that realm of things. And really like on your commute, you can finish an episode.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure the audio was good so it didn't turn people away, it like in the grand scheme. And then from there, we knew we had to get ahead of ourselves. So this is all fine and good, but how do we make sure that when we launch, we actually have people there to listen?
Yeah.
So that was a couple things. One, we wanted to make sure that we got a good bank of episodes available so that we weren't week to week.
That was huge. Coming out of the gate. Huge.
It would be awful.
I could not imagine trying to edit and do it at the same time.
Like week to week, I wouldn't. There's no way. I just don't see doing it. So the bank of episodes to make sure, and what we settled on was 6 months. We wanted to have 6 months worth of episodes available. And man, I'm glad we did, because the other side was social media. We knew we had to build a group of people who knew what we were all about, who were in community with us, who kind of knew what to expect going in, so that when we did launch, it wasn't like crickets, and really just like our really close friends and family knew about it, and we were experiencing 10, 15 downloads an episode. If we hadn't had the bank of episodes and we were doing all the work with social media and things like that, I don't know. I don't know how we would have done that.
One of them would have suffered. Either we wouldn't have released episodes on time, or we wouldn't have had quality social media, and like the two wouldn't have gone together like they have gone. I want to go back real quick to one thing we've both said is like the time of the episodes being like that 30 to 45 minute range. Bobby kind of pushed back on that and was like, I don't think that's long enough. A couple of my friends got to listen before we launched. And some people said the same thing. Like, I don't think that may not be long enough for a D&D. Like, you feel like right when you're getting into it, boom, the credits hit and you want more. And I've heard so much more positivity now.
Right. Yeah.
From those 30 to 45 minute episodes. And I've heard from multiple other D&D podcasters that have reached out to us and said, man, I really, really wish we were going that 30 to 45 minute route instead of the hour and a half, 2 hour route that we are doing, we being them, because it takes so much more time to edit. It takes so much more time to plan as a dungeon master. It takes so much more time to record, to schedule with friends, and we all know how hard D&D, like the big bad evil guys, really scheduling. Like, to me, I think that has been a home run for us, is sticking to 30 to 45 minutes, because from the insider's perspective here, we record for like 3-4 hours worth of recording at a time, just like anybody else plays D&D, but we get so many more episodes out of that playing, that I think other people don't get. They have to do it week by week, where we don't have to. And if something comes up, the world doesn't end, because we still have 5 or 6 episodes that we got last month. Yeah,
and we have had stuff come up. We've had months where we couldn't get together and play because of whatever, kids, schedules, whatever. And it was cool because we were already set for that month, and because we were working ahead. And two, I think you are seeing a shift. I've heard several people that are like, I can't do the 3 and 4 hours.
Yeah.
I can't do that, so I don't even listen. Like Critical Role, I know it's great. I'll wait for Vox Machina to come out because I can't sit through 4 hours. Like, and I get it, because I've done that myself, where it's like starting and stopping an episode. Well, it's been a day since I've been able to really sit and listen, and I know I listened to 30 minutes, but now I've still got an hour and a half left.
Yeah.
And they just put out another episode, so that's 2 more hours or 2.5 more hours. So now I'm like 4 hours behind, but I really don't even have 30 minutes. Like, and so you get into that realm of seeing people kind of like struggle with that. And I think that was the best thing that we did, was really kind of say, hey, no, let's small chunks. We edit tight, so we have a ton of fluff. So it's not like you get 30 minutes of us going, well, we could go this way, or we could try. So I think that's been a huge thing. And it's the pre-work, right? So that's a lot of the pre-work that we did, especially with social media and kind of putting all those pieces together to make sure that was like a well-oiled machine. I mean, we really did do a really good job of like setting the stage for those things.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the pre-work from the DM's side.
So the hardest thing
where to start, right?
Yeah, right. The hardest thing to DM a podcast is not just the dungeon mastering. It's the, like, if I'm just playing with my friends around a table and the timeline gets all wonky, you just say, hey guys, the timeline got wonky. Like,
sure,
it doesn't matter. The world's not going to end. But for a podcast, like, I feel like I've got to timeline it out so I know that 40 years ago this happened, but it couldn't. This other person couldn't have been available then because they wouldn't have been old enough, or they would have been too old at that time, or whatever. Right. And then creating your home, like our world is homebrew world. And so making sure the map has been completely created. If I was just playing at a table, I may not have the whole map done. I may have like a small section of it, but knowing that the party may go to different locations and you are recording a podcast, so you want to make sure you have each area planned out to an extent so that when y'all go to different areas, it doesn't just sound like I'm winging everything. So planning out the timeline, making sure that like my big bad evil guys and the different NPCs have really good personalities, and the combats aren't just stale, boring combat. Like, there's so much more intricacies you have to plan than just at the table. It's a lot more stressful.
I couldn't do it. Not a chance.
I don't disagree. I don't think you could either. But it's a lot more stressful in the sense that, like, I have to make sure that everything is together. I can't just be like, I mean, I could be like, you got a +1 sword, but I want it to be something that listeners want to listen to, because we're creating entertainment. We're creating content for somebody to consume rather than just us sitting around the table laughing and having a really good time.
Yeah.
It's just a whole lot more.
It's a whole lot more. Yeah. So, okay. So as far as that went, how do you feel the podcast launched? Successfully? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I've never launched a podcast before, so I'll say it's extremely successful. I think you're better to answer this question. You've launched a ton of podcasts.
Well, my wife is, back end wise, I have done a ton.
But
Caitlin's
you've seen them launch.
I've seen them launch, and everything. There's a spectrum for everything. I feel like for us, it went fantastic, and we had a lot of people. And I feel like you are a little more in like the DM world with the other DMs, but I feel like we had a lot of people that were like, we're kind of scared for you guys because you pubbed it for a long time and you all were telling us it's coming. And we built it up and built it up and built it up. And then once it released, I feel like that was a big part of feeling successful we did have downloads coming in immediately. And so that was the other part of it too, is that we released 3 episodes at once because we did understand that we are going short, 35 to 40 minute episodes. So we do want to give something to binge in the beginning. So when we launched, there were 3 episodes, and seeing those numbers come in, it felt really good to have all 3 episodes catching these numbers roll. And it was like, okay, people are here to listen. We got something here. So.
And it was cool to hear, like, when we did launch, like you said, we built it up for a long time. It wasn't a 1 month build up. It wasn't a 2 week build up. It wasn't was it 6 months, 7, 8 months before we launched?
It was about 6.5 months. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's a good piece of advice for anybody that's launching really anything in the internet realm, is like, you've got to give it time to breathe and to kind of build a life of its own.
Right.
And we put it out to a few other podcasters and friends and family before we officially launched it. And one podcaster that's about on our level of like popularity said, "Oh no, I was worried for you guys." Like you said, like, because you were going to launch and like the only place to go was a be a letdown. And he was like, y'all lived up to the hype, which was great to hear. But I think taking that 6 months, and like you said earlier, recording so much beforehand, it gave us a chance to edit the episodes, especially the first 3 episodes, really well so that people didn't get to them and go, oh, they spent the first, 3 hours doing nothing.
Right.
We've all listened to podcasts or watched live streams where you watch it for 45 minutes and literally nothing happens at all.
Right.
And we were able to kind of tweak that and move things around at the table so that that launch could be successful and people wanted to listen to episode 2 and wanted to listen to episode 3. Yeah. But I think the social media is 100% what got us a lot of pub out of the gate.
Yeah. And I think that was a big part too, is knowing that like, hey, we want this community to see what we're doing. Yeah. So let's go be a part of that community.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge part of it, to know that like, we can't just expect them to come to us because we're going to do something that's in the D&D realm. Right. We need to go and be with the D&D people to let them know like, and we found a incredible community that, I would have never expected, but like incredible there. So let's go kind of to the other side of that. Like, what would you have done differently now that we've launched? We've been out for, I don't know, about 6 months or so. We've been out, something like that around there. What would you have done differently now?
I don't know if I would do anything differently in terms of the podcast. Like, I really like the product that we put out. So I'm very happy with it. I think social media wise, it takes a while to find your voice. Like writers, they always say like it takes a couple of books. Like you're writing a couple of books before you sound like your author. And if you're in a band, it takes like an album and a half to like really get your sound together. So like you sound like your band. And I think social media wise, and we talked about this a lot, like it took us a while to find kind of who we are as a social media platform or entity or whatever you call it. I really like the level of like goofiness meets professional meets information giving meets a group of people that want to kind of build up the community. And at first, I think we were way too professional in the sense of like how we talk to the camera, so to speak.
Yeah.
Where now it's just, it's goofy, but it's not goofy because we always said like, I'm not doing the TikTok thing. Right. Like I'm not dancing. I'm not going to lip sync. I'm not going to just like do stuff like that, which other people do it. That's totally fine. It's just not, it wasn't like our thing.
Right.
But I think we leaned like way too far into the, like, we've got to be professionals in this. Right. And I think now we've got that certain level that I think people really feed off of. And I don't know if I would have changed that. I think it just has to happen organically to get you there.
Yeah, completely agree.
What would you change?
I think you're right. As far as the podcast goes, I don't know that there's anything. I think we, and not to have a big,
Tyler earlier.
Right, exactly. Like, so, that part of it, I think we did really well with that. I don't know that there's anything that I would have changed. Social media wise, even that, I think that we were like super consistent, super early. And I think that really helped. I think the only thing that I may have done differently, we did utilize giveaways and, things like that to try to get more people involved. I think I would have leaned a little harder into Instagram ads earlier on. Not saying that it would have been relied on that, but since we have gotten further into that game and seeing kind of what it can do, and that it can be very targeted to the right people. Yeah. I think maybe we would have looked at that a little more to have a little bit more of a leg up. But even then, I don't think that was necessary. Yeah. So I don't know that anything differently really would have changed anything. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe come to YouTube a little sooner.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Definitely come to YouTube sooner, and maybe even like drawn it out even more. So like if we waited 6 months, do we wait 9 months and build it up even more. Could have been a thing.
Yeah, could have been for sure.
Yeah. Done more lives. I love doing lives. We just don't have the time.
We still need to do it right. And that's another thing too that I think we've done a really good job at, and being able to like get ahead of ourselves as far as like the amount of podcasts that we have. Because I think we're still like 3 months ahead or something like that. And so it does give room to breathe. We all have kids. We all have jobs. We all have, I mean, all those things. You have to have some kind of room to breathe, especially like we just got through the holidays and all that right. All that craziness. But I think all in all, I think we did. I think if anybody said, hey, would you tell someone to copy what you did as a podcast strategy? I would say yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think going back, like build it up through social media, like is so important. And then like we've been talking about, get ahead. Get so far ahead that you think like, okay, this is way too far ahead, because you can never be too far ahead. You can never, ever be too far ahead, especially with a D&D podcast, because things are going to happen. If you try to do it week by week, you'll be done in 3 months.
And I hate seeing that though when people post on Instagram or like in their stories, like, hey guys, sorry, this week's episode's delayed. Yeah. Like, and because it's life, like you can't stop that from happening. And so when you're trying to be week to week, one, that's too much pressure. Like this is supposed to be fun. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like this is supposed to be fun with you and your friends, and it not being this like weighted thing that now is like, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. So I completely agree.
Thinking about strategy is like thinking about it not as, especially for a Dungeons & Dragons podcast, it's not the same thing as playing at the table with your friends and that's it. It's you're creating content for people to consume. And I know the whole adage of like, oh, Critical Role, it's just them playing D&D at a table. And it may be somewhat like that, but they have conversations all day, every day about how to make their show better. And we have conversations all day, every day, literally all day, every day, through text, our group chat, about like, how do we make our podcast better? How do we make a better product for people to consume while still playing Dungeons and Dragons and having a ton of fun at the table? It's just a different feel. Honestly, kind of like it better than before.
I would agree. Yeah. Because I think it's because it's more like the game kind of has, I don't want to say realness. I'm not realness, but like more of a structure to it. And people are following along. Like you don't have that person that's like scrolling on their phone because this is probably the last session they're going to play in or whatever, so that you have more of like people are here and they're playing. Yeah. And like that part I love. And it still has that. And I don't know what Mercer says. He says it at the end of the episodes where he says something like, we love you. And is it Thursday yet? Yeah. Like, and I feel like with us, that's how we leave the table. Like, yes, it's a podcast and yes, it's very different. And yes, we're trying to keep all our P's and Q's and like get all that. But at the same time, when we get done, we're like, okay, but like, let's get a date for like the next one. Yeah. And so I think that part of it, like that part still holds true, that you still just want to get back and play, but it's even better because everybody is so invested in that. Yeah.
But it's always, how can we make this better for people? Like, how do we make them consume more? Like, what do I do on the editing side or the post side that's going to make people go, oh, that was different, that was cool, versus just, hit record in the middle of the table, at the end, hit stop, upload that and say, okay, this is our podcast. Right. That's fine. Yeah. But that's not who we are. Yeah. It's not who we are.
Not for us. So if you want to hear things like this, if you want to see kind of how we walked our characters through and in that timeline, join us on the 20 Sides podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Also available here on YouTube or Apple, Spotify, all those great things. Please leave a 5-star rating and review, because we know that you're going to be like, this is 5 stars.
It is.
It's 5 stars.
If you could leave 6, you would, but you can't. Yeah. I'm sorry.
We've had so many people reach out to be like, I tried to put 6, they wouldn't let me. Yeah. And it just didn't, No. Yep. We love you guys. Thank you for being a part.
Follow us on Instagram at 20 Sides Pod.
All the socials, we're there everywhere. Make sure that you hit the subscribe thing, wherever it is down here. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you have any tips for how to launch a podcast, throw it in there. We are all about sharing that information and helping others move forward as quickly as possible. So until next time, we'll see you later. Peace.